Nick Hit List.
This video is brought to you by Patreon. Patreon! Want to play rock and roll tennis? Nickelodeon developed many genres of television over the years, from preschool programming to game shows to sitcoms to animation. But there was one type of show that they had been trying to nail down from literally day one, since April 1st, 1979. And that was the current events show, the magazine show. Programs that looked at contemporary pop culture through celebrity interviews, clips from movies and television shows, and musical performances, either live or via music videos. It all started with America Goes Bananas in 1979, then evolved into Livewire in 1980, which would run through the Cy Schneider era of the channel. Nick Rock's Videos to Go adopted ideas developed by MTV with things like guest hosts and music video countdowns. Rated K for Kids by Kids focused on the movie side of things and was later absorbed into Total Panic, which would be replaced by Outta Here. And Don't Just Sit There embraced the talk show format. Nickelodeon had taken a lot of cracks at this idea, but they never seemed to stick around for too long. Nick Rocks was dropped in 1990, and both Outta Here and Don't Just Sit There would be gone by May of 1991. So, the slate was clean for another attempt at this. Airing first as a one-off special on July 6th, then beginning as a regular weekend series on November 1st, this is the Nick Hit List.
The Nick Hit List. It's not what they think, it's what you think. About movies, music, stars, and stuff. And what makes it choice, kids, is what makes it Nick. The Nick Hit List. It's sneak peeks, top tens, and the inside scoop. Every Sunday, it's the one countdown where kids really count. We ask what you think, we've got what you want. The Nick Hit List. Every Sunday at 1:30, 12:30 Central on the only network for you, Nickelodeon.
Now, I gotta say up front, this is the least amount of footage I've had for a show in a long while. I have 4 commercials in the first 90 seconds of a Valentine's Day special, and that is it. I've done my best to reconstruct what this show was, but you're gonna be seeing a lot of the same B-roll over and over again. Airing new episodes on Fridays and reruns on Sunday, Nick Hit List was a half-hour program consisting of celebrity interviews and pop culture countdowns hosted by 13-year-old Kennan Scott and filmed at Nickelodeon Studios. Episodes often promoted a new movie or album. There was one episode dedicated to the new Peter Pan film Hook, featuring interviews with director Steven Spielberg and stars Robin Williams, Julia Roberts, and Dustin Hoffman. There was an episode for Beethoven, interviews with Boys to Men and PC Quest, remember them? Nice mullet, kid. One element that made Nick Hit List stand out was the On the Street poll segment, in which correspondents in Orlando, New York City, and Los Angeles approached kids and asked them their opinions on pop culture, like who's the best dressed kid on TV. We don't have footage of these segments, but we do have a similar segment in the Valentine's Day special with celebrities giving their thoughts on the holiday.
And I think Valentine's Day is wonderful, and all you guys, don't forget, it's a major faux pas.
Well, it's really great to have someone to share it with, and I do. So I'm really loving Valentine's Day.
You know, it's love in the air. It's Valentine's Day, so it's fun.
I like giving Valentines like I did when I was in kindergarten, and I still do that, so I think it's fun. Great, I love Valentine's Day. It's fun.
I don't think neither one of us have a Valentine. What are you doing on Valentine's Day? You go to the movies? Would you be on Valentine's? Would you?
Oh, definitely.
We're in love.
The countdowns, which included top 10 songs, movies, and television programs, were not determined by things like the Billboard charts or the box office, though they often reflected those, but instead were based on write-in ballots that were sent to select schools. 3 different schools for every episode, one in a rural area, one in the suburbs, and one in an urban area. This way, kids from all across the country, from different socioeconomic backgrounds, could have a say in what was popular. Nick Hit List was a show about documenting what was trendy, so it was kind of televised peer pressure, in a way. Hey, kids across the country love Tracy Spencer. Why don't you own any of her albums? Of course, Nickelodeon never passed up an opportunity for data collection. I really wish I had more to show you. This set looks like a lot of fun, with the moving gears and the industrial framing and the Mario Brothers pipes and the big telephone fax machine thing. It's probably what the aesthetic nerds would call factory pomo. Reminds me a bit of what BET was doing around this time with their music video show, Videos Sold by Request. And speaking of music television, Nick Hit List was the brainchild of Robert Small and Jim Burns, the creators of MTV Unplugged, which featured popular artists in more intimate performance settings with acoustic instruments. In my opinion, Unplugged is the best thing MTV has ever done, and many of the performances on there have become iconic. Not all of them, some of them really stunk, but seeing these performers outside of their pop production bubbles was always at least interesting, and oftentimes great. Nick Hit List wasn't much like MTV Unplugged, and actually Nickelodeon would air far fewer concerts in the 90s than they did in the 80s through shows like Special Delivery and the Saturday Concert. Still, Small and Burns knew how to get celebrities on their shows, and it was those promotional talents that made Nick Hit List possible, as well as having a good sense of the 9 to 14-year-old youth market, or the tween market as it was coming to be known. Tweens fill the gap between the kiddie and teen markets. It's a funny market. With kids becoming more sophisticated earlier these days, the 12-year-old is like the 16-year-old of 10 years ago. If you should ask younger kids, 7, 8 years old, about the economy or the environment, you'll probably get a lot of one-word answers. We get some very insightful comments from tweens. A lot of people in television would make the mistake of putting on what they think these kids like, as opposed to finding out what they actually do like. Also on the production side of things was Roseanne LaPopolo, who had been a producer on Finders Keepers and Rich Hall's TV Dinner Party, and would later produce the 90s Tomorrow People revival. And Marjorie Cohn, who would produce a lot of Nick's early 90s output, including Clarissa Explains It All, Get the Picture, and Roundhouse, and is now the president of DreamWorks Animation. Nick Hit List would only air for 7 months, its final broadcast on May 31st, 1992. A show aiming to be perpetually contemporary has no value in reruns, and the Nick Hit List has become one of the more lost shows of the Nickelodeon 90s. It's very possible that someone has an episode on a forgotten VHS tape in their closet, perhaps an episode featuring a celebrity they were interested in at the time. But until something like that is discovered, the best we get is a short clip of glam metal rocker and former Runaways guitarist Lita Ford getting all handsy with the young host.
Tell us about the show, Kennen.
Plus, we're gonna have the winners of what? The winners of TV. Sorry, the winners of the TV Perfect Family Vote. So stick with me for the next half hour. And this crazy woman. Yeah, get out.
Speaking of the host, it's a shame we have so little footage of him doing his thing, because it turns out that Kennan Scott is one of the coolest, down-to-earth guys I've ever talked about on this channel. As a child actor, Scott had a small reoccurring role in The Cosby Show as Raheem, one of the kids in Theo's after-school tutoring program. Scott also appeared in films like the Robert De Niro vehicle Night and the City, and the Denzel Washington and Whitney Houston film The Preacher's Wife. However, by 1992, most of Scott's focus would have been on school. He attended the Bronx High School of Science, a very competitive, specialized high school that produced more Nobel laureates in science than any other secondary school in the world. From there, he was off to Northeastern University in Boston, where he got the Bachelor of Science degree in Civil Engineering. From there, he moved to Oakland, California, working on public transit, cycling and pedestrian amenities, and creating community outreach programs. In 2014, Scott began teaching engineering and computer science classes for West Oakland Middle School, with a focus on providing educational opportunities for young people of color that typically didn't have them, something that Scott would give lectures on, including rap lectures.
Google, Facebook, and Yahoo, they all wanted to hide it, but in an audit, they all were astounded. Black and brown representation at less than 3% throughout the nation. Come on, let's be honest. It should be better, a worthwhile endeavor. Build up the workforce, show lives they matter. Now communities can grow. Let the money flow, release the control on the knowledge and access.
I love this. In 2017, Scott attempted to get Coded Academy, a coding educational program rooted in Common Core, to expand into a full curriculum, but unfortunately he has yet to make it past the pilot stage. On top of being a civil engineer and a teacher, Kennan Scott is also a skater, or actually a rollerblader, and he has been since he was 18.
I grew up the son of a dancer, and so I know the importance of my feet, and I always knew how to use them. Skateboarding never felt like it was connected to my feet enough for me to really do what I wanted to do with them. And so in order to be the best I could be, I chose rollerblading.
His YouTube channel, Blading on the Brain, focuses on his blading and recovery after a traumatic brain injury in 2017. It's pretty cool stuff. There's a link to his channel in the description below. You should check it out. And yes, I did manage to contact Kennan Scott, but our schedules haven't lined up yet for an interview. And yes, I did check with him. Scott doesn't have any more footage of Nick Hit List than we have. As with previous shows that had no or very little footage, if any episodes of Nick Hit List hits the internet, I'll make a part 2 of this video and give the show the deep dive it deserves. And it does deserve it, because Nick Hit List was approaching the end of an era. The magazine show format, the music video show format, didn't really survive on Nickelodeon past the early 1990s, at least not as a dedicated show. After Nick Hit List, the magazine show would go on a 3-year break until 1995 with Bing, The Sound of Something New, which was even less successful and even more short-lived. And that would be pretty much the end of a lineage that began with America Goes Bananas in 1979. You could argue that it did sorta kinda continue in the late 90s and early 2000s with live interstitial shows like Slime Time Live and You Pick Live, echoing Total Request Live on MTV with its celebrity interviews and viewer choices, but that dedicated half-hour program was quickly becoming extinct on the channel. I hope that one day I'll have much more to say on Nick Hit List. For now, this was just a sample. Wait, no, that's the wrong series.
Nick, Nickelodeon. Nick, Nickelodeon.
Next time, we kick off a trilogy of Nick at Night crossover shows with some goofy alien antics. Nanu, nanu. Today's research shout-out goes to newspapers. Newspapers! They print things about television shows sometimes. Thank you all for watching. If you like support Knacks and other Pop Arena projects, consider contributing to my Patreon. Every dollar goes to production values, research materials, and keeping the lights on. Remember, if we can get Patreon up to $1,000 a month, I'll kick off Knacks at night. And you can also support the channel by liking the video, subscribing, hitting that bell icon for notifications, sending a one-time donation through PayPal or Ko-fi, following me on social media, and sharing Knacks with all your friends. I'll see you next time, and remember, Black Lives Matter.